12 degrees.
First for breaking news and the best live sport.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
Good morning, it's 9 o'clock. I'm Nicky Campbell. It's your call. How do we beat bullying? The children's charity Childline says it's seen a huge increase in the number of children contacting them about online bullying. Their annual report shows a big rise in racist bullying too. Robert Mullaney's 15-year-old son Tom took his own life in 2010 after he had been bullied online.
The child that is my son, he's 18 this year. He can carry on with his life and no one is going to know any of the difference. My son's dead and I have to live with that the rest of my life. In this country, the technological advancement is going forward at a fast rate of knots and we're not catching up.
Liam Hackett set up the anti-bullying charity Ditch the Label after he was bullied at school.
We're really against the criminalisation of bullies because often when people bully others, they tend to be being bullied themselves, either at home or in a different environment. So usually the case is that they actually need a lot of help and support themselves in order to be able to get past that.
Have you or your children been bullied at school, at work or online? What's going on? Why does it happen? Why do people become bullies and how do we change their behaviour? Been going on a long time. Witness Flashman, 0500 909 693 or on social media at BBC 5 Live.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
It is 6 minutes past 9 o'clock. How do we beat bullying? That's your call, your call this morning. This is because what's prompted this discussion is the fact that the children's charity Childline says it's seen a massive increase in the number of children contacting them about online bullying. It's something they have been specifically looking at the behest of the CEO over the last 12 months. So that's to be taken into account. But clearly there are new and pretty terrifying ways of bullying people, pretty effective ways, if you want to put it that way, of bullying people. Seeing stuff written down in some way, as we were discussing earlier on, seems to be almost worse than people saying it to you verbally. We're going to speak to Chris Hodgkiss as well, and it's not just online bullying as well. There's the whole notion of the whole bullying thing. Chris Hodgkiss, 33, company director from Stourbridge, was bullied at school. We're going to speak to him very shortly. We've got Luke Roberts as well, national coordinator of the Anti-Bullying Alliance. Luke, the very man. Good morning.
Good morning, Nicky.
We're going to hear first off from Ian in West Yorkshire and Robert in Hull. Robert, thank you for getting in touch. What would you like to say?
Nicky, just before Christmas, my boy who's 45 years old, he was urinated on in the school toilets by members of his class. What? And the concern is obviously one of his parents must be being bullied. One of the child's parents must be bullying.
And what did you do about it?
Well, we've obviously contacted the school. To be quite honest, I'd like to take the clothes that were urinated on, ask them to be replaced. Because why should she continue wearing the same clothes?
Was there due punishment for the perpetrators?
Yeah. There's no punishment, is there? That's the trouble.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. It's not a great line. There's no what?
Yeah, there's no punishment for the people who...
what happened? What happened to the people responsible?
Well, that's obviously going through the school at the moment.
Right.
But the issue I'll keep you informed if you wish about it, but the real problem is that at 5 years old, somebody's urinating on somebody as a form of bullying.
Let me take this to Luke. And what this takes us to a key point about why children, why anyone bullies. Is there a cycle going on here that they that's a language they understand from their own home, Luke?
Okay, I think, Nicky, what I'm going to start with is making a clear distinction between one-off incidents of abuse, what is bullying and what is a crime, because I think the term bullying is used to cover a whole range of behaviours that can be harmful. And so it's really important, and this is what the Anti-Bullying Alliance does so well, is to make it very clear what is the definition of bullying. So what we're looking at, is it intentional, is it repetitive, and is there a power imbalance between the perpetrator and the victim. So it's really important for parents to understand and schools to understand when they're looking at a bullying situation.
What do you mean by, if I may, what do you mean by a power imbalance?
So a power imbalance is something where, for example, if me and you are having an argument, it could be that you're saying something like, Luke, I hate you, and I'm like, Nicky, I detest you as well. But where, for example, you make those comments and I don't feel I can defend myself from them, that's where we start to see this power imbalance. So when we're looking at, for example, cyberbullying, often it's that the person who's being victimised doesn't feel that they've got any options in terms of support or any defence mechanisms to the abusive behaviour that is being repeated. So this is what's really important to get across when we're talking about bullying incidences as opposed to abuse that might be a one-off incident. But it's also really important for parents to recognise that sometimes we're not talking about bullying at all. We're actually talking about a criminal event.
Like the one we've just heard, albeit perpetrated by 5-year-olds. Where is a five... Sorry,
Nicky, can I put in there?
Of course.
This lad who was the ringleader actually urinated in front of 500 children. Actually, he did it in front of other people. And he's bullying...
Listen, Robert, can I try and get you back on a clearer line? We're going to try and do that. Maybe you've got a landline or something, because the mobile keeps dropping out. But this whole thing, Luke Roberts, where if a child is urinating on another child, where has that child learned that behaviour? That's what I want to know.
Okay, and again, what I would say is looking at the intention of that young person. So is it to victimise somebody else? Often one of the big challenges that I have is this distinction when kids think they're doing something that's funny and amusing and not recognising that it's actually harmful to the personal group that they're actually taking those actions against. So it's really important to make this distinction about what's in the intention of the person who's being the bully, if you like. And so again, you're absolutely right. The younger they are, the more likely they are to have had these lessons taught in home about what is inappropriate behaviour and how we treat each other. So this is why schools play such an important role in actually helping young people to understand what is bullying and what is and isn't appropriate behaviour.
All right, stay there. Simon in London, Ian in West Yorkshire. Good morning, Simon. What would you like to say on your call?
Hey, good morning.
Yeah, you're on.
Hello?
You're on.
Okay, great. Yeah, the point I wanted to make is I'm a lecturer in youth and community work in London, but I previously worked for an organisation called Mentor UK. And we did an in-depth study into the impact of bullying on children and young people in school, but in the context of the impact being that it massively reduces their future life chances, because if you're bullied, you are exponentially, in a bigger sense, more likely to start misusing drugs and alcohol at an early age.
Is that backed statistically?
Yes, it's statistically robust. Yeah, there's some Department for Education research that tracked 15,000 young people over a 4-year period that looked sort of upstream at their previous experience at school and then the outcomes after they'd left school. And when there were instances of bullying or being perpetrators of bullying, those young people left school and many of whom had started, drinking at an early age and so on and so forth. The other important thing that I wanted to make is just about attachment, because if children and young people have an unhealthy home life or an insecure home life, the next single biggest protective factor for them is school. So if they don't feel safe at school, and they don't feel they've got a strong attachment to school, then we're doing them a disservice. And it's incumbent on schools to tackle the issue of bullying, but it's not bullying as we would ordinarily understand it.
To say that we're doing them a disservice is a kind of perhaps an understatement. They would have no anchor in their lives.
No, exactly. And it is about attachment, and it's about attachment theory, really, according to John Bowlby. That's my point.
Well, thank you. And here's Luke, and here's Robert again. Robert in Hull. We'll come to you, Ian, in just a second. Robert in Hull. I think we've got a better line. Hello?
Yes, I think you have.
All right, good. You are wanting to make another point to Luke, and I'm sure Luke may well want to come back on what Simon has said, the lecturer in youth and community work. Go on, Robert.
Are you speaking to me or to Luke?
I'm speaking to you, Robert, and then Luke can respond, because I know you wanted to say something else.
Yeah, what I'm concerned about is, and that gentleman was very interesting from the point of view of the school is the second most important thing in his life. Now that children are going to be fed at school as well, sure, that's going to make it even worse, isn't it? Or even better. I don't know which way that's going to go.
Thoughts, Luke?
Well, I think one of the things around schools is that what teachers really do crave at the moment is giving them the right training and the right skills to support parents with incidences. And from the perspective of the Alliance, what we're concerned about is how much training schools are doing around looking at all types of bullying and knowing that there are differences. So we know that boys are in schools often more physical, and girls are much more likely to use rumours and social isolation. So it's really important that schools are able to understand these signs and then support parents, because often parents are very distressed finding out that their child is actually being bullied and want to know not just that the school is taking punitive action, but the bullying is actually resolved. That's the key point for me.
This is an age-old question, whether it comes to bullying, whether it comes to pornography, whether it comes to anything on the internet. Has the internet created bullies? Has it made bullies out of people, or is it just made bullies, given bullies more avenues and a greater ability to bully? Or is it something about the cyber world that has kind of brought out the worst, brings out the best as well in people, but brought out the worst in people? It's cart or horse. What do you reckon?
Well, I'm going to say this. I think cyberbullying is a new form of bullying, and I'm going to say it for this reason, that we did some research with McAfee for Anti-Bullying Week 2013, where we looked at cyberbullying in particular, and what came out to us was that actually with cyberbullying you've got a different type of issue, because research already suggests, a bit like Simon said earlier about detachment, that you can feel much more isolated when you're being cyberbullied as opposed to real-world bullying. Secondly, that parents don't know what to do when their child is being cyberbullied, even though most children want to talk to their parents about this. And also that parents tend to have a response of, well, I'll just turn everything off, or I'll take away the technology, and that will sort the problem out. And what that means is that children are less likely to report to their parents because they'd rather be in these online communities and connected, as opposed to telling their parents and just being disconnected and not being able to talk to their friends and their classmates. In terms of cyberbullying, what becomes really important is that we've got to help young people understand that they create a digital tattoo. So as a perpetrator, when you do these things online, you're actually creating a record that might come back to you when you're looking at jobs or you're doing stuff later on in life. Going back to Simon's point about the long-term implications of bullying, it isn't just for victims, it's also for perpetrators as well.
And it's also adults who are suffering. Here's a text from Sam in North Manchester. I was bullied at work for 7 months before I saw the light, told my area manager I couldn't take any more, but I would rather be unemployed than endure the abuse for another day. I got transferred to another place. 2 years later, the experience still haunts me. That bully damaged me psychologically. I don't know if I'll ever get over it. That's Sam, strong man. Goodness only knows the effect on a small child. Ian in West Yorkshire, thank you for hanging on. What would you like to say on your call?
It was just really regarding the social networking sites, such as obviously Facebook is one of the most prominent. And are they doing enough to sort of combat this kind of thing? I mean, just looking at their sort of website this morning, 13 is the age you're allowed to create an account, and that young children obviously create an account at that age. I'm just not sure it's such a good idea. I mean, what do you think? I mean,
Luke Roberts, is that too young?
I think Ian makes an absolutely excellent point, and we do think that government needs to do more in this area, and so does industry as well, because from a government perspective, we're allowing social networking sites just to launch their products on children without saying what are the safeguards you're putting in place. But also from a perspective of industry, what we would really like to see is them making clear statements that bullying is unacceptable in their social networking sites. But also, one of the most interesting things is a lot of young people say, even if we report cyberbullying to these social networking sites, we don't know what happens next. There is a real lack of transparency in terms of what these providers will do with that information once you reported it. And this can be distressing for young people and distressing for parents.
Because the other issue you've got as well is we all know that children these days, I mean, as young as sort of maybe 10, 11, they're so good with technology. I mean, they can create accounts themselves. They could set emails up. You know, there's probably children that are on Facebook that are even younger than 13, and it's you know, I mean, how do you stop it? I don't know. I mean, they obviously have the you know, the sort of technological means. I don't know how they do it, but you know, you can guarantee there'll be children on younger than 13.
You're absolutely right, Ian. And I think what I would say is this is why it's so important that parents take an interest in the technology.
Yeah, indeed,
so it's not just enough to give your child the latest smartphone. You've actually got to sit down with them and say, what are the things that I think are safe as an adult? Because they won't see all the risks. So when you're saying, you know, you've got young people as, you know, under 13, 10, 11, going on things like social networking sites, they don't understand all the risks they're exposing themselves to, because there's an assumption from those providers that if you're going on it because you understand those risks. So it's really important parents continue that conversation with their children.
Yeah. OK, it's 9:20, more to come. Thank you, Ian. More to come, hopefully, from Luke. We're going to speak to the aforementioned Chris shortly as well. Do call us 0500 909 693, stamping out bullying and your own experiences of it. Being bullied, or might I say, in confidence, why you felt that you were bullying somebody. Why did it happen? Maybe you look back with shame, but maybe understanding as well. Here's Michelle.
Well, starting with the motorways and the M25.
This is 5 Live Breakfast. Your call.
Right, Luke Roberts still with us, National Coordinator of the Anti-Bullying Alliance. And also Chris Hodgkiss. I mentioned Chris earlier on, 33, Company Director from Stourbridge, was bullied at school. Hello, Chris.
Morning.
Morning. And let me go to David in Dorset and Ian in Nuneaton as well. Ian, you go first. Your experiences.
Hello, Nicky, yeah. Well, I've got a couple of things to say. That when I was a youngster at junior school, we often responded to the cyberbully type jibers. Sticks and stones would break our bones, but names, they never hurt us. But later on in my school career, I, in some ways, unfortunately, past the 11 plus, ended up in the middle of quite a big housing estate with about half a dozen other lads dressed in blue blazers and blue caps. And we were like magnets for the local bully, shall we say. But out of it, I learned to run very fast. I learned to negotiate, try and get my way out of a rough and tumble before it got that far. And I don't think it did me any harm in the long run. I had a few fights. And here I am, you know, an ex-fire officer. I think I'm pretty compos mentis.
Chris, what's your reaction to that?
As I said to your producer a little earlier on, it's actually quite surprising how it's affected me now and later on. In the early part of my life, I would say it really messed me up on the inside. But now, as time goes on, it's gradually starting to change. I'm starting to realise the fact that it kind of helped in a way, daft as it sounds.
In what senses? I mean, we got a bit of that from Ian. In what sense do you feel that?
Well, it's kind of prepared me a little bit. I think is about the best way to describe it. It's made me more aware and maybe a little bit stronger. I would say the first few years of my work life, it was an absolute nightmare. It really did. But as time has gone on, I feel as though it's actually made me stronger as a person and made me more susceptible to other people.
But Chris and Ian both. I wonder if you'd gone through that in the internet era.
Yeah, can I come back there then, Nicky?
Yeah.
I think the main thing with me was the support and education I got from my parents and my grandparents. They sort of, I could talk to them.
Indeed, that's a vital fact, but seeing it on the written page and relentlessly coming at you through Facebook or Bebo or Twitter or whatever.
Well, I use Facebook now.
Yeah, but I'm talking about back then.
I delete it. I just turn it off. I just ignore it and talk to my friends.
But Luke Roberts, do kids just turn it off?
No, they don't actually.
They take it very personally, yeah.
I think the problem with cyberbullying is that for adults, we don't have a reference point within our own childhoods to really understand what's going on. So I have a group of young ambassadors who actually tell me, Luke, this is what you need to know. I think with both Ian and Chris, what's really interesting is that kind of overcoming their bullying experiences can give you greater confidence, better understanding of how people use conflict and can be aggressive. But that's not always the case. And I think for some young people, we do know that when they're victimised, they do become depressed. And so this is why it's important to have a range of support mechanisms around children. So it's parents, it's schools, it's the voluntary sector. It's also about having ways in which young people can feel empowered in lots of different bullying situations. And I think one of the biggest challenges we've talked about within the child lines research was about racist bullying. And often if your child is being racially abused, that can make the family feel like it's not just an attack on the child, but it's an attack on the family. So this is why we do need some really good guidance and support to help families address racist bullying in particular.
Yeah, David in Dorset. Hi, David.
Hello. Yeah, I was bullied in the days before social media. But the reason for that was it didn't make it any less because other kids didn't have social media, so we were all out on the street, walking to school, chatting to each other. And the bullies could then hive off the weak and pick on them. But when they did it to me, as that couple of gentlemen have said earlier, I had a very big Irish Catholic immigrant family behind me, and they supported me and explained to me that I was valued, I was of value, and that the other person was beneath me and was the dirt on my shoe. But I also must see his point of view, that he's got issues. So my two elder siblings, two big brothers, went round and explained to him that if he didn't desist and change his ways, his world would end. And I know that's wrong. It wasn't bullying, it was explaining a fact. And he went on to be a sad, miserable alcoholic. And to put the point of that other person who said perpetrators often go on to become alcoholics and dependents. But it didn't do me any good. I mean, I suffered dreadfully with low self-esteem and depression. And I, in later life, became a school governor. And this is a point I want to make. I'm listening to Luke. Luke's from the anti-bullying campaign, is that correct?
Yep, anti-bullying lines.
Luke, can you do us all a big favour and force Gove or whoever is in charge to get some kind of pamphlet for those of us who are unpaid officials of schools to understand how to face cyberbullying and bullying of today? I know how to face the bullying of name-calling and racist bullying and religious bigotry. I know how to do that because I've been through it, and I feel qualified in that. But I haven't got a clue about cyberbullying. And
this is it.
I'm not a governor anymore, but that needs to be impregnated into schools because school governors are scared to death of bullying.
Is it,
They
Luke?
put their fingers in their ears and go, nah, make it go away.
Okay, are we up to speed across the society, but also specifically in the education system? Are they up to speed with cyberbullying? And if not, and if so, what's available in terms of advice and in terms of policy, Luke?
Right. In terms of your last caller, excellent point. We are working with DfE and actually other government departments to say who has ownership of cyberbullying, because it seems to be across the board. Is number one. Secondly, we've put, because we've just finished Anti-Bullying Week last year, which was focusing on cyberbullying, there are some videos we've put up on our website from a head teacher, from the Chief Technical Officer, Rashmani at McAfee, some young people and myself talking about cyberbullying. But you're absolutely right. There does need to be a lot more guidance and support about this because schools don't feel confident, teachers don't feel confident in addressing this issue, and often when parents are complaining, the complaint can go up to governors, and governors don't know how to respond. So there's a lot of work that the UK can do. We've got Safer Internet Day coming up on the 11th of February, where that's a lot of industry and voluntary sector organisations are coming together to say what more could we be done. But I think there does need to be a lot more work done around cyberbullying and actually some good research to say what actually works. One of the biggest challenges we have at the moment is how do we support young people and how do we support parents so that we're actually being effective.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Luke. Luke Roberts, National Coordinator, Anti-Bullying Alliance. 0500 909 693. How do we beat bullying, wherever it comes from? Whatever means through which it's delivered. Simon. It's 9:37. Now, we're asking how we can beat bullying this morning. It's because the children's charity Childline says it's seen a huge increase in the number of children contacting them about online bullying. Our reporter Rowan Bridge spoke to some children who've been bullied themselves. As you'll hear, it can have a devastating effect.
It'd be on like Facebook, like what you're putting that post on for, nobody cares about you, go kill yourself.
What did it feel like when somebody wrote something like that?
I felt like doing it at first, but then my mum found out. My mum texted saying if you send her another like BBM or something, she'll call the police.
And if you want to explain to people the kind of impact it had on you or has on other people, what would you say?
It's like a very like scary time. You don't want to be alive, basically. You feel like nobody cares about you.
I'm 12 years old. I've had it happen to me in school and on my phone. Some girls were doing it in school to me, and one girl phoned me off an unknown number, so it came up on my phone unknown. And so I picked it up, and she just kept on saying these things and breathing down the phone and being proper mean to me. And then she wouldn't stop phoning me. She was doing that all night long to me. I was crying to my mum. I don't want to go to school. I was still doing all my work, but like at home, I was proper scared, and I was crying to my mum. Didn't want to go out the door.
How awful. Sue Minto is head of Childline, who says the number of young people getting in touch with its counsellors because they're being bullied online has almost doubled. Hello, Sue. Hi.
Hello.
Linda is, not real name, has contacted us from Stirling. Just checking you're there, Linda. Are you there?
Yes, I am,
Good.
Nicky.
I'll come to you in a wee minute. And John's in Kent. Hello, John.
Hi.
Sue Minto, it's harrowing to listen to, isn't it? Have the numbers gone up, or are we just in a situation that, we've been looking at this and we've noticed that it's big?
It's difficult to say if the numbers have gone up or not, but I suspect that they probably have. Children, young people are contacting us online much more than they used to. They find it a good way to communicate with us. But this kind of rise, I think, demonstrates the world that they're living in at the moment, the whole social networking, and the fact that, unfortunately, it's ripe for bullying.
Is there a definition of bullying?
There are definitions, but I guess the bottom line is that it's anything that has a sort of a negative connotation against an individual child and has a distressing effect.
A distressing effect. It had a distressing effect for you as an adult, Linda, didn't it?
It certainly did, yes. I worked for quite a well-known organisation, and I had quite a rapid promotion through the ranks, as it were. And the perpetrator had been with the company for quite a while and really was at the top of their tree. There was nowhere else for them to go. They were supposed to be coaching me in my new role, but I guess it was a case of professional jealousy. Instead of coaching me, they tried to belittle me, make out that I wasn't competent in my job. The bullying took various forms, from nasty voicemails through to comments on emails, through to actual notes on my work when I was kind of passing my work through them to double check. I'd get all sorts of things scribbled on it coming back to me. And it went on for about 2 years. And I was initially, I think, when you're in that situation, you start to think that it's your fault. But I had a confidential discussion with a very good friend who kind of opened my eyes and made me realise, no, it's not you, it's actually them that has the issue.
Was that an eye-opening moment for you?
I think it was, because my confidence had been reduced to nil, basically. So I wasn't really able to think clearly enough to see that it wasn't me.
Was it reduced? Was your confidence battered like that because not any one specific thing that was said, but because it was relentless?
Absolutely, yes. It was constant, and I wouldn't say that every day something happened, but at least 3 or 4 times a week something was happening, and I would go into work dreading sitting down at my desk, wondering if there was going to be an email waiting for me. It was impacting on my working life and began to impact on my on my personal life too. So it was then that I had a chat with my friend who basically said, this isn't down to you, this is down to them. It's their confidence that's the issue, not yours. And from that point on, I decided to almost turn the tables on the bully. I started keeping evidence. I went back through all my emails and kept a file with everything in it, basically. I kept the voicemails that I'd retained, and I kept the notes, and I basically built up a dossier of what had been happening.
Was that empowering? Or difficult because you had to look at the stuff again?
It was difficult because, yes, I was basically reliving what I'd been through. But it kind of gathered its own momentum because I had an aim at the end, which was basically to report this person with the evidence so that I had a strong case to present to the company, and that's what I did.
And when it was going on, did you talk about it to your, for want of a better word, superiors, your bosses?
Not at first, no. I had a change of boss partway through, and I'd had an excellent relationship with my previous boss, but I was still getting to know the new one. I didn't feel it was something I could broach with them.
But it's good practice in companies, whether they're large or small, to deal with this sort of stuff, isn't it?
Certainly now, yes. It's very much more... the processes and procedures are much more robust, and most HR departments are trained up in dealing with this sort of thing. At the time, though, I felt, I guess probably because of the situation I was in, I felt quite isolated. So it was really thanks to my amazing friend that I decided to take any action at all.
And the person who did it, why were they doing it?
As I said, they were as far as they could go in terms of their job role. And
no, but beyond that, do you think they were kind of damaged to extend an olive branch of understanding? Were they a damaged soul?
I don't know, because I didn't know them outside of work. I had no idea about their personal circumstances. All I knew was the person I saw at work. What I did find out, though, later was that I wasn't the only victim. I found out afterwards that there had been 3 other people who'd been bullied by the same person, but they hadn't taken any action.
What's this person doing now?
I don't know. I hope that they're living a very nice life somewhere, as far away from here as possible. But I think what I would say to anyone who finds themselves in a similar situation is just try and take a step back and look at it with a fresh pair of eyes. And, it's not your fault. It really isn't your fault.
Brilliant advice. Thank you so much for your call there from Sterling. Linda, not Linda's real name. Thank you, Linda. It's 9:45 and you're with your call.
This is 5 Live Breakfast. Your call.
Let's hear from Laura and John and Jerry, and hopefully as well from Jean Gross, an educational psychologist. Hello, Laura.
Hello, Nicky.
So what was it, yourself or was it one of your children that this was happening to?
We had a very relevant case. My 16-year-old daughter this time last year broke down and told us that she had a big problem. She'd been keeping it from us for some time and told us she'd been self-harming. It had been as a result of cyberbullying, and we got her some counselling, and it was very quickly escalated because she was suicidal. And
my goodness, did this come as a massive shock, or had there been any kind of suspicions that something was wrong, something was lurking?
No suspicions whatsoever, and I think children of today are very good at keeping things to themselves. And as parents, we'd never faced anything like this before. It was out of everything we've ever done in parenting, it was the thing we were least equipped for.
Interesting.
And we felt so out of our depth.
This brave new world, relatively new world, yeah.
Absolutely. We went to the counsellor, we went to the doctor, we got different help. We ended up with psychologists and psychiatrists. And my daughter ended up taking 4 months off school in her GCSE year. And we ended up, against all advice, changing schools altogether, which happened to be the best thing. She missed her GCSEs, unfortunately. But we're through and out the other side. We can look back. It was a very educational experience for us all. But I've ended up with some strong opinions about, what's available in terms of support for the perpetrator, the victim, and parents of victims too.
Well, you can ask Jean Gross that question, I think. Jean, that's kind of your area, isn't it? Because between 2010 and 2012, you were the government's children's communication champion. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Laura, what do you want to ask Jean?
I think that the main thing for us is that the first place you go to is an internet search for information. And there's nothing available that's promoted to parents or to victims that I could find anyway. And I just felt that there was very little government information and support for families that were suffering from this.
Yes, I think there's more government information for schools. For families, and particularly for young people, I'd really recommend the charity Beat Bullying. For example, they have a really great site for young people where they can go on themselves and learn a lot that makes them understand that being bullied is not their fault. It's nothing to do with them. It's nothing to do with them being inadequate. One great thing to say to young people, for example, is, did you know that these people have been bullied? Kate Middleton, Kate Winslet, Tiger Woods, Justin Timberlake. We have to impress on young people that it is very, very common and it's not them. So there are some sites for young people that are really good. For parents, I think it's tricky, and I really think schools have such a big role here. I don't know whether you went to your daughter's school and what they did, but my work has been a lot with schools, and I know how very powerful they can be in creating a school culture that stamps out bullying.
Well, John, am I right in saying your daughter was bullied at school?
Yeah, absolutely. When she was about 15, she dared to stand up to the popular people who were bullying her friend, and all she did was basically just tell her to stop, because I've taught all of my children to stand up against injustice and bullying whenever they see it. And she did that, and that singled her out, and they completely turned on her, a group of them, about 6 of them, and they physically assaulted her in school. And when they couldn't get her in school, they got her outside of school, and it culminated her being beaten up by a gang of about 30 people. The police cautioned the ringleaders, and the headmaster, when we went to see him, because we wanted these girls suspended, told us that she would have to change to fit in with them, because they were the popular people, and she is autistic. So she should do more to be more ordinary and like them, like other people.
Oh, that's outrageous.
It's absolutely outrageous. And this is a very good school. It's a grammar school, and it's got very good Ofsted reports. And the saddest thing, the great thing that came out of it, my daughter, she didn't go to school. She's self-harmed, and she stayed in her bedroom for a year, and basically in the end she decided that she wasn't going to let them win. She'd got books for herself and taught herself, and just went back into school to do her exams, and she got 7 A's and 4 A stars, and is now in university doing a master's. So she's used it to basically become stronger herself, which is very admirable. But the sad thing is that the 4 of the 6 girls who are the ringleaders are now in teacher training.
What?
Which I find really distressing.
This gets worse.
Because, yes, exactly. And I wonder what, I don't understand teacher training. I'm not sure what provisions are made for, kind of explaining what bullying actually is to some, because I think some teachers, they may not be bullies themselves, but they definitely turn a blind eye to it because they're in the popular people, as they call themselves, basically suck up to the teachers, and they know how to manipulate people, and they actually manipulate the teachers. And so all of these people that were kind of, doing this to my daughter were very adept at, sort of kind of flirting around the teachers, kind of all that kind of stuff. But I also know my own experience.
Flirting around the teachers. I feel uncomfortable.
Kind of, flirting, not in a sexual way, but
right.
just in a, kind of
having a laugh, bit of banter,
them up the right way, basically. And my own experience when I was at school, which is a long time ago now, is that I had a teacher actually pull me out in front of the entire class and take the mickey out of what I was wearing, because I came from a poorer background than a lot of the children at the same school, and absolutely shattered sort of any kind of confidence or sort of wanting to go to school. And that was a teacher. So it's not, I'm not saying all teachers are like that. Obviously there are some fantastic teachers, and there's always one that we remember that helped us, but I do wonder what is being done within, teacher training to kind of weed out these kind of people.
Do you know the details of the 6 girls? There's bound to have been a ringleader, isn't there, and others who are kind of...
Yeah, there was one or two, and then the rest of them, follow on from there. There's a little hierarchy, and then they persecute everyone else around them, and they kind of hold sway. It's like, they're like a king in a court, really, a queen in a court.
Jean Gross, that's interesting, isn't it? Hierarchy, queens, courts, groups, tribes.
Yeah, I'm afraid it is. It's a terrible story, and I really, really sympathise with both John and Laura. They're terrible stories. One of the unfortunate things, though, is that our human nature does set us up to be part of a tribe, to need to be and want to be part of a group, and to define that group by people who are not part of it. So we are, in a sense, fighting against human nature. But I have seen so many schools that do that. I visited a school this week, it was a primary school. They'd had a whole week, as many schools do, an anti-bullying week, when everybody in the school, every child, every teacher thought about what bullying is. So they really explored what is bullying and what's not bullying. A one-off act of aggression isn't bullying. So they really understood it. They looked at cyberbullying. The children got together and they made a huge poster about not wanting to bully each other, and they invented a slogan for the school, which was "Nobody here makes others feel small." Every child in the school put their thumbprint on this huge poster, and then they turned it into a leaflet about bullying, so every child in the school has a leaflet to help them understand bullying, what it does, how it hurts. All the staff understand. I've seen secondary schools have a whole day when they stop teaching the normal curriculum, and they look at literature, they look at film, they look at art, they explore bullying as a whole school community. So there are many schools that are really trying to fight this, and lots of programs to help them.
Not to trivialise it in any way, are there situations where somebody says that they have been bullied and they haven't really been bullied? It's just a little bit of,
Well, young children don't
verbal
understand.
horseplay.
Young children will say, I've been bullied when someone has been aggressive to them in the playground, and that's not okay either. But a one-off fight isn't necessarily bullying. The key for children to understand what bullying is that there's an acronym
and it's
sustained
it's
several times
constant,
on purpose.
Constant.
It's not just once, it's several times. And there's an imbalance of power. That's the other thing. If two children have an argument or a fight and they're equally powerful, you wouldn't call that bullying. But it's where one has power over the other, as is obviously the case in John's very
Well, John, clearly the case with you, a real power imbalance, John.
Yeah, I think that's very heartwarming, and I've seen some of these campaigns in schools through, some of my younger relatives, and I think they're fantastic, because really, if you stand out at all, if you stand out, if you want to dress differently, you want to listen to some music differently, or if you're different in any way, you will be singled out. It's become worse than when we were at school. That's definitely the good case. That's a greater part of a human problem. The selfishness that in our society is manifesting, I think, through bullying, and I think that's all part of it. But it's this school, my frustration with these schools, and it's not isolated, because my wife runs a support group for people who had similar experiences, and there was another boy, I can't really say much about it, but anyway, there was another boy who was persecuted, who killed himself. My son was bullied in primary school, and what they used to do is the teachers repeatedly, because they just didn't seem to have the wherewithal to deal with it. Used to just say, "Oh, it's banter." He's got to get used to banter. This is all just part of life. Well, unfortunately, it's not, because it crosses a line, and it's you know, it is persecution. And it is persecution of anyone who's different, which is just so sad.
That's absolutely the phrase, isn't it? Crossing the line, and it's quite clear, and it's the relentlessness, the fact that it goes on. And, well, listen, thank you, John. Sorry, there were other callers lined up. I'm so sorry I didn't get to you, but John and Laura, Linda, some really powerful calls this morning. Jean, thank you for your time. Educational psychologist Jean Gross. Let me just remind you that French police are going to give a press conference very shortly. Their first findings into the possible causes of Michael Schumacher's skiing accident. You'll be able to hear that. Victoria will bring that to you on 5 Live. See you tomorrow. Thanks for listening.